Hey, everyone. Welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. We've got a super exciting guest today. Our guest was born on the farm in Tennessee and was raised in Ontario and Zimbabwe and currently resides on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I always get that mixed up, which is Vancouver, Canada. Her praxis focuses on the inner and outer connections that can be made pushing at the edges of the barriers surrounding sticky subjects such as trauma, identity, love, and death. Welcome, Angela Fama.
Hello, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. You ready for 20 questions?
I am.
Okay, here we go. Number one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
Right now, I always think about that question expansively past the what I think is more commonly known in Western culture as what do you do for work? But I guess what I do in life is try and connect all of those things. So I try and have my praxis be my life and my play and my learning and my work all interwoven into one. So that takes a lot of work. So that's what I do. um,
We set up the studio for the podcast here in Canby Village. I've been in Canby Village for a while, and I feel like I've seen you at the coffee shop, or we've wandered past one another at some point. So there must be something happening there. That's definitely a good thing. Number two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
hmm. I think I did a project once called What is Love, where I drove across North America and interviewed over 300 people on their own personal um, definitions of the word love. Uh, and I was in a pop up photo studio. So it was just me and them, and I recorded the answers. And when I've done projects like this in the past, I was expecting different answers and came to very similar conclusions. But with this What is Love project, there was no one answer that was the same. And it sounds kind of cheesy to say this, but I think that there is never going to be another me or you or anyone else. So my experience is all the things that put me together that make me me. I guess some of the perspectives I have or the abilities I have to see past um, the first layers of things comes from the life that I've had. So only I can offer that perspective or that person or the work that I do. Um, and I think that makes me unique.
Great. Yeah. Angela and I met at TED where we were both speaking at TEDx, and I saw that she was running events around her project called Death Conversation Game. And when I saw the kinds of events she was running, I knew I was going to have her on something like this, and it's just been a great opportunity. Um, yeah. Number three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Sort of similar to what I said before, it's that praxis of life and art and work and being together. It's what I think I got born with some kind of mojo in me that just keeps me pushing to do this kind of work to connect past again those kind of specifics. I think maybe living in Zimbabwe and rural very unexpectedly
Mhm.
living in rural uh, northern hemisphere of Zimbabwe when I was at the teenage, like formative years, really helped to kind of break a system of knowledge within myself as I was growing. So, sorry, I got distracted. What was the question again? I love.
Um, it's why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
So yeah, I was always an artist as a kid. I always loved creating. And then something sort of happened when my perspective shifted about what it is to exist. And I think since then, I just I don't really find the same sort of presence of being when I'm doing other things that don't really tap into that, pushing at the edges. So in order to be with myself and the world and the people around, the communities around, I have to kind of be communicating in that way, I think, at the root of things for myself.
I'm glad to hear you bring up Zimbabwe, our most popular episode so far, actually. And I'm recording here from Vancouver, Canada. Our most popular episode came to us from Hong Kong, where Keith Tam is working now. How, can we expand on the Zimbabwe topic? What role did that have for you?
In what way? Like
Or
role?
how did that kind of shape things for you?
Oh, I think I had. I think there's something that happens when you are exposed to more than one culture for an expansive period of time. I was there for
Mm,
3 years.
right.
wasn't it wasn't in the city. It was really rural. And I had some city time, but it was in the mountains of Zimbabwe. This was in the late 80s.
Mm,
So before where they're at culturally now, it was 10 years post independence when I was there.
mm,
And just that getting shook out of Western concepts, or I guess Canadian specifically concepts of value and belief in what life is meant to be, or what a purpose is in life, or what we're taught or sold essentially, uh,
mm,
got shook off me at a young enough age that I was able to morph with it
mm,
and really truly understand it, as opposed to having such a deeply rooted, invested Western culture within me to be able to expand and I guess become more than as a result, with having these two perspectives exist within each other within me, and then to come back to Canada as a teenager and like an older teenager and try and actually function. um, yeah, I think it really affected, the root values of what it is to exist and connect and feel, and be true, to ourselves and to another. It was made very apparent and clear to me in Zimbabwe.
I was chatting with one of the other guests about how pop culture plays such a significant role in people's lives here in Vancouver, and how important it is to them, and how kind of bizarre that is. We were talking about what it's like to be a cool kid and to kind of reject that.
Definitely. I'm actually doing a project right now that's a little more personally autobiographical than I guess any of the works that I've done publicly to date, and it's been a lot of coming to head with that awareness of cool factor and identity formation in the teen years. Within It was Ottawa that I was in, but I moved to Vancouver when I was 19.
Mm,
So it was quite a bustling city then, for compared to Ottawa especially, for always having something to do or some scene to be connected to. So
mm.
definitely pop culture plays a large role in identity creation.
Number four, some people struggle with this one, but I'll just ask it. What does your future look like?
Mm. I've got no idea. I feel like I'm a person that I grew up a little bit outside the systemic, formation of family, even though I wouldn't say there's any idea of normalcy, anywhere really, but there's the sold two parents and a house, and I never really had any of that sort of thing. So, um, when I think about the future, sometimes people have lists of things they want to do or things they want to achieve in life, and I've always been a bit of a go-getter, so that list I actually kind of checked off,
Mm,
pretty amazing things. And now
mm,
I'm 45, and I'm a little like, oh fuck, I don't know what's coming next.
mm,
And I also almost, died pretty actively when I right after I turned 30,
mm,
so that had a pretty profound effect on, living life now to the fullest. So I try hard to focus on now,
mm.
and what's needed now. So I work really hard to not actually look too much to the future.
Mm.
Then I'm living in expectance of the future rather than in the present moment. So
Mm. Our previous guest today answered that one, saying that the future is going to be everything from now on. It's everything, right? Basically, the future is everything, always.
mhm.
Um,
And
Number
we're in
five,
the
yeah,
future. Sorry, we're in the future right now from when you asked that question. So
exactly, kind of, right? So, yeah. Number five, and I was foreshadowing this a bit, but let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
a lot right now, especially I'm thinking like if we talk about Zimbabwe or Ottawa or Vancouver. I had an RV for a little while that I was really working on ideas of home, and I do a lot of death work, which helps me to release uh, attachment to things. That near death experience did the same sort of thing to me, so I have a really minimalist life. So I've really done a lot of work to think about what is home, where is that space, what is place, how is that in relation to place. Um, so currently I'm about to start kind of working on a project that explores that more, that idea of globalization in like intersectionalism, hybriding cultures and communities, and what of a space, what is nature, what we've placed upon it. So I'm always thinking about that. And for me personally right now, I've been in Vancouver longer than anywhere in my life, and I'm a little, especially after COVID, I'm a little itchy to to just get out. Um,
Mm,
but I also am aware that I've never had such a community of people around me that
mm.
over time to be connected to. So that keeps me in place, essentially, at the moment.
So, would you say pandemic is kind of shaping these kind of place projects and place ideas?
No,
Oh,
oddly enough, I think it's helping to,
mm,
um, but I kind of got a bit of a similar, hmm, maybe, but I think that was coming on its own anyway, like with
mm,
the RV, driving
mm,
around, and was doing the kind of working up to that
mm,
beforehand,
mm,
and also doing a lot of work with knowledge and awareness of globalization and power and what travel actually is. So I think that affected it more. That kind of grounded my happy feet a bit, and that was actually when I met you. That
mm,
was just before COVID.
mm,
I think COVID sort of showed up at a time that I would already have been sort of staying put, just because I'm trying to figure out how I feel about what travel is,
mm,
what it is to take my body and place it in another culture, that the privilege and the power of that. So
mm,
yeah, that's adding to it, and COVID obviously helped with that
mm,
to really make it not a choice but a a chosen necessity.
mm.
So
Great. Okay. Number six. If you had to start from scratch, what advice would you give your former younger self?
keep on going, stay true, just listen to what you actually sincerely feel, want, need, creation, say, speak it, do it. Just do your best to hear yourself, because that's the only way you can really be true to in your communication with the world.
Great. Number seven. What's your day in the life like?
Right now I am working on a project that I just mentioned, and that is what I'm committing my life to for this next year. So today it was drawing, but it's a really interdisciplinary project where sometimes it's drawing, sometimes it's sound, sometimes it's digital.
Mm. Are these art projects?
Yeah, it's one sort of expansive project currently called Love Letters to Turbulence, but I've committed this 2022 to work on this project.
Nice.
I'm just being a full-time artist right now.
We had another guest, Dr. Garnett Hertz, on the show, and one of his comments was he couldn't figure out how some people managed to be full-time artists, like I guess because he's so kind of entrenched in the academy that he wouldn't know how that would work exactly.
Yeah, I worked really hard and got a Canada Council grant for research and creation for this
Oh,
project.
good, good,
Um, so it's
great,
that's definitely helping.
great. Number 8, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
I would say that's a life motto. So I went where we met. I went back to Emily Carr in my early 40s, and just I've chosen not to have children and not to structure things that might take me away from the space it takes to continue a lifelong of learning.
Hmm. 9, what tools do you use? Are you more digital or more pen and paper?
I am extremely multifaceted. So currently, I'm drawing inks. Um, I have photography. I have been and continue to be a photographer by trade. I'm a musician as well. Sound, digital, analog, hard copy. I like it all. So I actually like trying to find ways to interweave them and use tools from the past in the present.
For our audience who hasn't heard the episode with Keith Tam yet, you should have a listen to that. He still uses a typewriter, or
Mm-hmm.
actually several typewriters, he says.
I've actually
Um,
been using a typewriter quite a lot with this project.
okay, we're halfway there. How do you deal with work-life balance?
Right now, uh, trying to commit to being a full time artist is excitingly challenging because I have the death work and I host conversations on death using the death conversation game. And then I made a choice just before the What is Love project to just fuck it and commit to art. And it's oddly been working out so far. So I do photography sometimes when jobs come my way, which helps. But it's still within, it helps me to hone that skill. Um, so far, sometimes I do service. I work for secret supper dinners sometimes with friends. It feels like fun, but otherwise, it's always a kind of a amazing to me how since I've made that commitment, I've been able to kind of make it by better than before, to be honest. Oddly enough, so
Great. 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
I have no idea. I kind of do the things I want to do. So
Hmm,
yeah, right now I'm thinking about getting a tattoo gun. Add to this tools. Human skin as a medium.
nice. 12, what would you not like to do career-wise or with your life?
Anything that requires a calendar structure repeatedly. I don't do well with 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Hmm. 13, what's your favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Mm. I keep saying this one. It's one that I've carried around since I was like 19. Wishing isn't good enough.
Hmm.
Helps me to. If I don't spend a whole lot of time wishing or hoping for things. I when I have a desire, I think about is this a desire that I can achieve, and if I need it, how do I help work towards that, or how do I make space for that?
I have a similar one. I don't know if it's my favorite. Maybe it's my favorite right now. It's hope is not a method.
Oh, and I have to make sure I credit it's Mae West that said that. When I
Okay,
was 20, I thought Mae West was pretty cool.
nice. 14, what's your least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Mm. Generically asking someone how they are.
Hmm.
Like asking, but not really wanting to know the answer. Or just expecting a great. Yeah. Or maybe,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, 15, if you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be?
Resilient.
What keeps you up at night? 16.
Stress, anxiety sometimes. I just let the brain go wild.
What's
Not
a,
so much. I would say not so much these days.
oh, what's a dream you're chasing?
Ooh, having the courage to truly be confident in my own visions, creative visions.
What inspires you?
Courage. uh, Change.
Any advice you'd like to share?
I think I may have said some things. I try to do my best now to listen rather than give ideas on. So I guess listen, that's the advice.
And 20, most people's favorite. How do we keep tabs on you? How do we follow you? How do we check out your projects? Stuff like that.
Is that actually most people's favorite?
I think so, yeah.
It's like at a party when someone asks what you do, and I know a lot of artists that have a hard time. They feel like they're selling themselves. Where can people find me? On Instagram, and my website is just my name, AngelaFama.com, and then the death game is deathconversationgame.com. And on Instagram, Death Conversation Game, all one word, all lowercase. And you can find stuff about the Let's Talk About Death conversations that I host quarterly right now. There's another one coming up on September 25th. Um, and then I'm also in a band, and we're playing a show on the 22nd. You can find information about that sort of stuff on Instagram for me.
Great. You know, awesome to have you on the show. We definitely need more artists and full-time artists. That's a pretty cool way to go, I think. Thank you so much for being on the show, Angela.
Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to listening to all the other ones as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.